Okay, so this is definitely going to be a longer tutorial. Probably. I don't know. I'm recording this before actually any of the video, but it's probably going to be a pretty long one. Because today we making cannon. Pew! Yippee! Okay, let's get started. Okay, so to start, I don't know, I have that selected. But to start, we're just going to start out with our actual cannon circuits. And I'm just going to start by getting a set transform. Okay? So then you're going to have your little set transform there. Then you're going to get two more things. You're going to get a delay. And you're going to get a trigger handle. Now, we can just freeze our trigger handle down here. We don't need it until a little bit later. But what we're going to do is hook it up. So, basically, when we pick up our trigger handle, it's going to run a delay. And when we release, it's going to cancel the delay. Now we're just going to set this to about 0.05. And we're going to hook up the after delay back to run. So now, what it should be all alike is on pickup, run. After delay, run. On release, cancel. Then we want, so every time we run, it's going to set the transform. Now, the reason we do it like this is it basically creates something similar to a 30 hertz receiver, but because of the way it is, it's only activated when we're holding our trigger handle, which saves us network heat, which is just how we would want it. Now we need the actual stuff. So I'm just gonna make a really quick cannon model real quick. At this point, you can just pause the video and make your own cannon model, or you can come back and do that after the circuits. Doesn't matter too much. All you need right now is a couple of shapes. So I will see you when I'm done with the cannon model. Okay, Horseman is back, and as you can see, now we have a cannon. It's a very kind of horrendous cannon model. I'm not good at building. But anyway, now all we're gonna do is, first of all, this step isn't required, but I prefer it. We're gonna configure into our little trigger handle circuit board and change the attachment mode to detached. And what that does is makes it so when we move around our trigger handle, the actual circuit board does not move. And then I'm just gonna stick it down in here, and we'll come back to that later. For now, I'm gonna configure our cannon. I'm going to change it to decoration. Then I'm going to add the tag can. Oh, that's two words. Cannon. I'll just do can. Makes it easier for me. Now, don't forget to click the plus button and make sure it's under current tags. Then come all the way down here and turn on can modify with circuits. If you don't have the can tag or can modify with circuits on, it will not work. It just won't work. Now, all we're going to do is grab two chips. We're going to find a chip called get forward vector and another chip called get position. I need to turn on my grid. Then we need one more chip, and that chip is called Rec Room Object Get First with Tag. It's a little annoying to find, but you should be able to find it decently easily. So I'm just going to detach everything. The chips you should have right now are a trigger handle, a delay, a set transform, get position, get forward vector, and Rec Room Object Get First with Tag. That's all you should have right now. Now we're going to add it into our tag. And the exact same thing we entered into the tag for our little cannon model right here, we want to enter in right here. It is cap sensitive. So if you have any capitals in your tag, you have to make sure you include them in here. And if you did it right, you should hover over this object and it'll say Rec Room object. Now we're going to hook that up to the target of our get position and the target of our set transform. Then for the target of get forward vector, we're going to hook it up to the top of the trigger handle. Then for position and rotation, we're going to take our get position for position and get forward vector for rotation. So, and then we're just going to hook up to what we had before. So on release, cancel. On pickup, run. After delay, run. Run, set transform. And what this system is essentially doing is, here, let me just show you. If you look here, that's not really working. So to fix this, all we're going to do is we're going to set our trigger handle down around about forward facing, so it's like this. Then we're going to edit in here, select all of the objects in this, and then all we're going to do is align it to how we want it to be. And when I say that, I mean, if our trigger handle is facing forward like this, then we want our cannon to be facing the direction it should be facing when we point it forward. So now, as you can see, it moves a lot smoother. And if we want, we can also just move it up a bit so that it's not clipping into the floor as much. Still clips into the floor quite a bit. But look, now we have a little movable cannon. So that is the first part of the circuits. And all I'm going to do right here is edit into our trigger handle, turn on visible only when components are visible, and turn off play via SFX, standing for sound effects, on press. That's all I'm going to do in there. And then I'm just going to take this, move it a little closer to the cannon, so it's like almost right in front of the cannon, and then get out something called an animation gizmo. Now, normally these are just used to make animations, but all we're going to do here is move our trigger handle to wherever we want it in relation to the cannon. Then we're going to use the connect tool to, is it called connect now? Yeah, it's called connect now. We're just going to wire this little trigger handle to the top little circle of our animation gizmo. Then we're going to configure into our red circle and turn it to 1. Now what that's doing is anytime we drop it, it's just going to get set back to that position. And we just want it to be a little nicer. So another thing we're going to do is just hook up the cancel to set transform. And what that does is when we drop it, so I believe I'm just going to copy another little delay to down here. Then have it so when we cancel, after we cancel the first delay, we're going to run this one. And after that delay, we're going to set the position, the transform of it. And then set this delay to be 0.2. And what that should do is, now it just aligns itself straight. What I'm going to do, though, is just kind of... Now, this part is not required at all. You do not have to do it. But now, we have a little cannon. And let's say I were to just move it up a little bit because it's kind of annoying when it's that low on the ground. Now we can just grab this, and boom, we have a cannon. But if you notice, we can't really shoot the cannon at all. So now what we're going to do is make it so we can shoot our cannon. And we need to start by getting out a cannonball. So all I'm going to do is just take a sphere and color it black or any color, and if you're making something other than a cannon, for example, if you're making a railgun or something with these physics, this is going to be a projectile, and this is going to be the actual model. So turn this into the railgun, and this into like your big beam thing, if you're making a railgun, and just change it to whatever you're making. But now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this cannonball, I'm going to edit into it, change the physics mode to physical. I don't want it to be grabbable, so I'm going to leave that off. And then, for the tag, I'm going to do cannon B for ball. This is just the tag you're using to define it later on. So just change this tag to something you'll remember, and then turn on Can Modify with Circuits. And now we have the little ball. And all we gotta do now is make it so when we press, so we're just gonna copy our set transform to right about here, and have it so when we press, we're gonna set the position. No wait, that's not right. When we press on the trigger handle, we need to find. So for starters, we're gonna hook rotation up to get forward vector, and our position to position again. Is that right? Yeah, the position works there. Now for target, all we need is a second Rec Room object to get first with tag. You can just move it to like right here. And then click into this and change it to be whatever your other tag is. And then hook that up. So now if you notice when I where's the trigger handle? When I click, it spawns our cannonball. And if you want to, it's not really required. But if you edit into your shape, this little white cube right here is called a pivot point, and that is where your cannonball will spawn. So if you want to, you can make it a little more centered in the cannon. It's not required at all. It just makes it a little bit nicer. And now, like, it just drops to the floor, but we want it to launch because it's a cannon. And the way we're going to do that is with a velocity add chip. Alright? And our target is going to be the Rec Room object. The velocity, this basically signifies the direction. So we're going to hook it up to get forward vector again. Then multiplier. The multiplier is basically how many meters a second you want it to go. So I'm going to have mine be 15. Now it's important to make sure your maximum speed is the same as this, because otherwise it might break and just fly way too fast. So now, we shoot a little cannonball. Now I feel like that's a little too slow for me, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bump this up to 40. Once again, you have to make sure both values are 40. And now, we have a little cannon. And now, just for some easy quality changes that I feel like help improve it quite a bit. So let's do that. Okay, so, no, wait. Go away. Okay, so for the first little change I'm going to make is, for starters, right now, we can just spam it and it looked really weird. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a cooldown to it. And this is, there are more complicated and more efficient ways to do it. So if you know that, just do those. But a really easy way to make a cooldown is just with bool variables. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a bool variable. It doesn't matter what you name it, as we're going to condense this whole thing in later. But for now, all we're going to do is have it so after we add the velocity to the cannonball, our bool is going to be set to false. And then we can just copy one of our delays up and have it so when we set it to false, we have to wait 5 seconds before it gets set back to true. And the reason we do that is, now if we hook the then to set transform, if you look, we can only shoot the cannonball every 5 seconds. And you're just going to change this number on the delay to be how you want it. So I'm actually going to change it to 2.5 seconds. So boom, now we have that. But also, it just doesn't feel right to me, at least. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add there's this little chip, SFX, sound effects. And it's super easy to use. We're just going to configure our little thingy, go to sound, and we are going to scroll until we see, where is it? We're just going to scroll and scroll until we see one specific sound effect. Pretty sure I went way past it, but, hold up. I just wish you could look, search for sounds here. Might be at, the bottom. We're gonna look for the cannon fire sound effect. Oh, yeah, right here. Cannon fired. And now just hook the run of the delay to the play of the sound effects chip. So now it actually has a sound effect when you fire. And then we want people to be able to tell when it's on cooldown. So I'm just going to come in here and do the player show subtitle. Now, we're going to hook the else on the if chip to the trigger on the player show subtitle. We're going to hook the player to the player holding the trigger handle. We're gonna change the subtitle to be on cooldown. So it's just like that. And then you don't have to do this, but I prefer to change the duration to 1. So now, if we hold it and fire it, and we try to fire it again, it'll say it's on cooldown. And now it already feels a lot better. It already feels better. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to this cannonball. And I'm just going to have it right here. Then I'm going to drag a trigger volume over it. So that it's like this. And then we're going to have our trigger volume just over here. And we're going to detach it again because it's just easier that way. And then we're going to copy up our velocity add. Alright. And we're going to have it so when a player enters, the player that entered will be the target. Our velocity is going to stay as the forward vector. And that's all going to stay the same. But what we're going to do is get out a set velocity, or velocity set. I don't know exactly what it's called. Here's it's called velocity set. Yeah, velocity set. And our target is going to be our cannonball. The velocity is going to stay as the forward vector, and we're going to set its velocity to be 0. Now, all that does is make it so when somebody touches the cannonball will stop moving, and all the velocity that was on the cannonball is just going to get sent to them. Now, you can use the velocity reflect chip. It just gets a tiny bit more complicated, and I prefer to keep it simpler for these tutorials. But if you know how to do that, do that. And now, if we just do this normally, our trigger volume is just going to stay here. So what we're going to do is get a clamp chip. Right? And then the top little yellow part of our clamp needs to be attached to the purple trigger volume. And the ball, the cannonball, needs to attach to the bottom. And now, if I bring this up and out of the map, we have ourselves a cannon. And just to show you, I don't know if I can really do it too well, but I'll try anyway. Yeah, it can hit me. Hold up, I need to aim it right. Whee! So as you can see, we have a fully functioning cannon. And one last little quality change that I like to do is I'm going to edit into our trigger handle. And I'm just going to come down here. And this can be a little weird to do. But just make sure the only things you're deleting are the things that you're not using. So you still want all of this. Now, it's easier for the trigger volume. You're just going to go into player exited and then just spam the delete button. And now, what we're going to do is we are going to select all of our chips that don't have this little icon next to them, because that shows you that they're external components. But so the only things we don't want selected are the sound effects, the sound effect player, the trigger handle, the actual trigger handle, the trigger volume, the actual trigger volume, or the actual cannon model. So we only want these chips selected, and we're going to click Create Circuit Board. And now you can rename this to all the different things you want. But now we have our cannon. And that is the end of today's horse tutorial. So goodbye.